hate is not new.
No.
Hate is not something that started in the past 2 months.
Right.
That suddenly we need to fix this. It's hate is so deep rooted.
Yes.
And I hate to say it, but ending racism and ending hate is not possible.
Right.
It is so deep rooted in people's family trees and people's households.
Right.
It's like a virus. It spreads and it continues.
Right.
So I think more important than trying to stop hate
Yes.
is teaching why they hate.
Mm-hmm.
And teaching why we're treated the way we're treated. And remembering. And I just want to stress that point because, and I'm seeing this happening again now. Something happens, people get upset, people protest, people post,
Yes.
then it stops.
Right.
They go into the ground, the casket's lowered into the ground, we forget. The news stops talking about it, people go back to their lives until it happens again. And then we act like it's never happened before.
Right.
Nothing is going to be fixed that way.
No.
If we can watch a man die on camera 100 times, but we can't stay consistent about something for 100 days,
Right.
don't expect anything to change.
No.
I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but don't.
True.
We need to be consistent.
Yes. Yes.
It took 400 years for slavery to end. Slavery still hasn't ended,
No.
but the American foundation of slavery took hundreds of years to end. Segregation took so long to end. If they had boycotted the buses for a day and then said, but I gotta get to work and my kids gotta get to school, so we're gonna get back on the bus. The back is kind of nice, actually. It has better windows. Like we still would be at the back of the bus.
Exactly.
It takes consistency. It takes sacrifice. It takes losing friends and maybe losing some family members.
Mm-hmm.
It takes being judged in both the eyes of your individuals and in the eyes of history.
Yes.
I think to Malcolm X, someone who probably did so much for change, but so many people, you say Malcolm X and they say, oh, the violent guy. Or they say, oh, the if we have to kill him guy by any means necessary. And on the flip side of that, you say Martin Luther King and people say, oh, the peaceful guy, the guy who would never want, in the past 2 months, I've seen so many people post, Dr. King would never want us to do anything like this. And it's like, okay, sure, but have you seen Dr. King? Like, that man walked and was hit by bottles and everything.
Mm-hmm.
He experienced violence in the streets just as much, if not more so, than anyone today.
Yes.
And so I just want to make that very clear. Nothing's going to change if we don't stay consistent. If we do things out of bandwagon, I feel like social media can be very helpful to spread awareness, but I also think that the publicity of it makes it to where people are like, oh, I'm going to say this so that nobody gets on me. I'm just going to post. And it also makes it easier just to do that.
Yes.
People can say, I'm an ally. I posted a black box. I'm done. No, I did my part. You can't call me racist now.
Right.
And it makes it very easy to make excuses and do as little as possible and take credit for it, or to do as little as possible and get a lot of credit for it. And it's people out here dying, trying to do something.
Right.
So yeah, it's a crazy, I'm not going to say it's a crazy time. I'm going to say it's been crazy times. And yeah.
Yeah, I think you've said a lot of really golden things that resonate and that are just true. As long as we're human beings and susceptible to perception, and emotional influence, there will be hate. So so the goal isn't to eradicate hate. but perhaps the actions that are rooted in hate.
Yeah.
And there's no like one way to be an activist, right? There's no one way to incite change. So you compared Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, two completely different characters, right? Who had different bodies of understanding about what was going to work. But there's room in the world to have a Martin Luther King and a Malcolm X and many of them. Do you think that there are any in this day and in this modern day, do you think there are any of those powerhouses? Like when we look back at our history, we can look back at a Martin Luther King. We can look back at Malcolm X. Do you think in our time, do we have those voices that are, those prolific voices that are willing to risk it all?
You know, the first ones that come to mind is automatically the Obamas. I know that when my kids go to school, they will be in their history books. Yeah. I don't know how many pages they'll be, but I know they're going to see them in the history books. Yes. I think one thing about the time we live in is that, you know, back in the 60s, there was no such thing as influencers and instant celebrities.
Right.
So unfortunately, I do not know how many people we will remember from this time on that level, because anyone can be an activist, anyone can be an influencer, anyone can make themselves a billionaire, which is great. But a lot of those powerful people don't use their money to put themselves in the history books, which is a choice and which is fine. But, you know, and I had never even thought about that question. So you just asked it. And I'm like going through my brain trying to figure people out. And I'm sure it is plenty of people. I'm sure. Yeah, wow. I hope there is. I hope my mind is just blanking on me right now, and that there are definitely more people out there who I feel would put everything on the line. But at the same time, I'm asking myself, would I put everything on the line? Because, you know, you work to achieve something, and it can end in an instant because of one decision that may or may not change. Right. And may or may not end up in the history books. There's a lot of activists who will never be in the history book, even though they did as important things in their individual communities as an MLK or a Malcolm X. And you hope you would get on the front line and put your life on the line and stand in front of a gun for your community. But I feel like it's one of those things that until you see it happen, or until it actively is happening, you don't know. Right. So I hope there are plenty of people who end up in the history books around the globe and who would put their lives. Colin Kaepernick, for example. Colin Kaepernick put it all on the line when he took that knee, and he faced those consequences. And that was, in my opinion, probably the bravest act in possibly my lifetime, because that's football players. Yeah. I've athletes in general. If every African American player got fired, we would have no sports.
No.
We'd have hockey. Is what we'd have.
Yes.
We'd be left with hockey. And him being someone making millions of dollars a year, someone with a guaranteed contract and job, decided that other people's lives and justice were more important than his paycheck. Yeah. And he took that risk and he faced those consequences. Yeah. And he continues to face those consequences. But now thousands of people are taking that same knee. The same people who said he was crazy for doing it, for doing it.
Yes.
And I think that is the best case scenario of how that can happen. Is that you do something, you face the consequences, and then other people
Right.
come to realize that you were right all along.
Yeah.
Other people are not as lucky as that,
Right.
and their contributions aren't noted until long after they're gone.
Right.
So, I do hope it's more people like that, and I do hope more people realize it's the little things that get things done,
Yeah.
not the big acts of, oh, I donated $1 billion to the NAACP.
Right.
Okay, but what did you do in your neighborhood?
Right.
But what are you telling your children
Right.
so that these things don't happen to them?
Mm-hmm.
It pains me that I can't breathe has become a slogan for Black people. It pains me that we have multiple examples of people saying that on camera before dying.
Mm-hmm.
It pains me to hear someone yell out for their mother and no one get off of him. It pains me because, just to go back to that whole thing of being told, never be alone somewhere, always be with witnesses. It pains me to know you can have 100 witnesses filming you.
Yes.
And not stopping what's happening.
Right.
They're standing there, they're witnessing it, and you're still dying. And it's just absolutely crazy to think. I remember when I was in middle school, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, right? It's like you could literally make a timeline of just year after year. Philando Castile, Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old, and you just have this each year, and those are only the ones publicized.
Right.
To be noted, that's the only one. Those are the ones who were caught on camera and got media attention.
Way more.
Yeah, it's so many more. Probably at least once or twice every 6 months, it probably happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say what pains me of just this generation. We can say MLK was assassinated, Malcolm X was assassinated, Medgar Evers was assassinated. They were public figures before they died. The men and boys and women who are dying now are public figures after their death. Their death makes them a public figure. And
their murder.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think of anyone that's going to be in the history books, it's going to be their names, not the names of the people who are alive and well and doing things.
Right.
Because the number of people killed outnumbers the number of people doing things, unfortunately. And it pains me to say it, and it pains me that that it's become so constant that change begins to feel impossible.
Yeah.
Change begins to feel like a word that does not apply to you.
Right.
And we have to live with that every single day.
Every day.
And we have to live with the possibility, that could happen to any of us, any of our family members. I can only imagine the horror of waking up, turning on your TV, and seeing your family member on national TV with a knee on his neck, dying on camera. And no one does anything. So I don't know how this time will be remembered. I don't know if it will be remembered. I don't know if anything will come out of it, or if it'll just continue in this strange cycle of horrific events.
Total savagery.
Absolutely.
We meet that possibility every day that we wake up. We meet the possibility that that could be us. And
Absolutely.
nothing that we can do about it. You can't.
There's nothing we can do about it.
Good enough. You can't be articulate enough. You can't be. It's not a merit-based system.
I think about the guy who, I forget his name, but he was in New York. It was when the lady didn't have the dog on the leash.
Yes.
That guy is Harvard educated.
I know, right?
Was bird watching, which even I was like, Black people bird watch? That's a thing? And he has her on camera saying, and she's brave enough, knowing she's being filmed, to say to his face, I'm going to call the police and say that an African-American man has threatened my life. On camera.
Yes.
She knows she's being filmed.
He's confident.
She's confident because she knows they're still going to believe me.
Right.
This man is a professional, Harvard educated, watching birds.
That blew my mind when I saw that.
Yeah. Just the last person who you'd expect it to happen to. No one could lie on this man and say he was up to no good.
Right.
No one could. And so it's just
like that crime thing. That's ingrained in our history as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. And she played off of that intentionally.
Oh, yeah. Because it's easy.
Because she knows she's going to be fully supported by her white counterparts, and there's not enough representation of us in the law enforcement field. You know, we're not policing ourselves. We're being policed by a body of people, many of whom, not all of whom, but many of whom have a racist heart and do racist acts. And those acts often end in violence and murder of people who look like us.
Absolutely. And I also think there's a difference in vocabulary. I've heard a lot of people say privileged. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a difference between privileged and safe.
Right.
I think anyone, in my opinion, anyone who gets to eat 3 meals a day is privileged. Mm-hmm. I think anyone who has lights over their head and a ceiling is privileged. I don't think privilege is I don't die as much. I think that's safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know, I'm not going to say I'd rather be safe than privileged, but I'd rather be able to have both without worrying about one of them being taken away.
Right. Do you have any other golden ideas to share before we wrap everything up?
I would say the only thing I have to say, especially during this time, 2 things. 1, never leave the house angry at someone. Never leave the house with the last word being an insult or a fight, because both of you might regret it that same night. And whatever avenue you have, whether it be the arts, athletics, politics, medicine, law, use it. Use whatever power you have. What doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter how big your house is, if you have a house. What matters is that you use your skills and you use your voice in whatever way you can to show your support and to show that you're willing to be on the right side of history. And I just have to quote, all of us have history has its eyes on all of us. Every move we make today influences tomorrow. And you never know that you're in history until it becomes history. So always keep your mind on that. Always keep your mind on the fact that values and virtue and morals more important than your paycheck, how many followers you have, how many, a relationship. No one is going to feel, you can't promote strength if you don't have it. Same as way you can't love if you don't know how to love yourself and love who you are. So the first step to any kind of change is believe that you can change and believe that you have the power to do something no matter how big or little it is. Believe that you're worthy of being heard and seen, which we all are. And believe that even if you wash cars for a living, your voice matters, your life matters. And every day we wake up above ground is a good day and a chance to possibly stop someone else's life from being taken.
Yes.
So yeah, I'd say I would just leave it at that.
I received that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yay.